What's going on, guys? This is Mike with the 1% Mindset Podcast. I hope you guys are doing absolutely amazing. Today is January 20th. It is the third episode on the third season on the third Monday. You know, life is really about threes. Life is truly about threes. I'm really excited to be doing this and to continue to add consistency week in and week out as we continue to do these podcasts because I know that truth always reigns supreme, right? One of the things that I've worked on really hard is discipline, right? One thing I'm known for is really doing disciplined daily actions to lead to a result that I'm looking for. Right actions always lead to right results, and today I want to speak about vantage points or perspective, so to speak. Uh, I was speaking to one of my friends. She's based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, a few days ago, and one of the things she told me, it was funny. One of the things she said to me was it was a really nice day, and it was actually a really nice day in New York as well. She said it's really nice, and I said, oh, what's the temperature? She said 70, and I was like, oh, that is. I was like, it's really nice here too. However, the temperature's only 50 degrees. She's like, man, that's not that nice. And at the time I said, actually, in the middle of winter, it actually is. It's really good weather. I'm actually thinking about not going outside necessarily with a coat. Just a hoodie and I'll be fine. And life is really about perspective, right? And how you adapt to your situations and your circumstances. Like, how do you adapt to what's happening right in front of you? Right? Because when someone is used to a certain temperature, when I lived in Florida, when it went to 50 degrees, I bundled up. I had a coat, I had gloves. It felt that cold because I was so used to the warm tropical climate. However, in New York, when it's 30 degrees and it's all of a sudden it shoots to 50, it's like, man, do I really need this coat? Right? It's that much warm, right? You start adapting to situations, circumstances, and events that take place, and become better suited for your environment. But if you're not used to certain areas or certain things within your environment, what do you do to adapt? What do you do to change? How are you mentally built to take on when life offers something different? Right? See, for her life was, man, 50 degrees, it's actually pretty cold. And for me, it's like, yo, that's really good weather. Right? Because I'm adjusted to what's there. So where in your life does that show up where, you're adapted to certain things? But say if she went from North Carolina to New York and she had to adapt to that switch. That will she adapt? Will she be okay? Because I bet you people in Alaska will probably be outside in shorts and flip flops, right? Because they're used to such cold weather. It's about perspective and how you look at things. I remember one of my mentors, Matthew Pitts. He runs, and I'll give you some quick accolades on him, and then I'll tell you the story. Matthew Pitts is a phenomenal guy. I met him when he was selling insurance, and I was a part of his sales team. Right now, he currently runs one of the leading CBD companies in the world, CBD BioCare. It ships nationwide, multi-million-dollar company. And he's doing absolutely phenomenal with his company. So I'm extremely excited for what he's doing. But one of the things he was telling me a story one time. He said, until you're okay and comfortable looking at self, no, regardless of what the situation is, you can see things from all perspectives. Then you can make a decision based on how you see things. And then he told me a story about these two twin boys. Right? And I've told this story before, but in case you're new to this podcast, in case you've never heard it before, heard me say it, I'll tell you the story one more time because I think it'll really give you an idea of what it means to have perspective. So there was these two boys that grew up in what you may call a low income area in the hood, whatever you want to call it. And these two twin boys, and as they grew older, or as they grew up and became adults, one of the twins, he never did anything with his life. He was always in and out of trouble. He didn't have any money. He was just living the life that he saw around him, right? That's what he was. And when they interviewed him, they asked him, they was like, what's going on? He said, well, I can't be successful here, right? In school we never had the right books, right? My parents were divorced, so I never saw my mom. No one took care of me. I had to grow up quickly on my own. I had to hustle how I wanted to make it. So that's why I'm like this. They interviewed the other twin, the brother, and he was widely successful, made a lot of money, uh, portfolio stocks, like he did extremely well for himself. Went to school, got educated, and they asked him, how come you're successful? And he said it was because in school I grew up, we didn't have the right education. It was because my mom had to work two jobs, so they didn't, so she wasn't able to be there. It was because I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. It was because I saw drugs and crime, so I had no choice but to be successful. Two dudes, same environment, two different perspectives. Right? It wasn't that one person had more of an advantage over the other. It was the fact that the same person, I'm sorry, it was the fact that two people saw one situation and had two different perspectives. Drake, Drake, the hip hop artist, in one of his lines, he said, "We live in the same building, but we got different views." Same situation, same environment, different views, different ways to look at things, different ways to adjust to what's there. Right, and the reason why Matthew Pitts was telling me that story at the time was because at the time my excuse why I wasn't making sales, why I wasn't selling insurance policies at the time, or selling policies at the time, was because I was too young. I said, I'm too young. I look young. No one's gonna buy from me. No one cares about life insurance. No one's gonna take me seriously. And I made all these excuses to justify why I could not. I had everything right in front of me of what I wanted. I wanted to write a certain amount of policies. I had a number in mind. But instead of speaking about what I can do, what I will do, I spoke about what was not possible. I tended at the time to focus on, and this was over a decade ago, at the time I focused more so on what wasn't possible based on my limitations than what was possible. I tend to focus on what I couldn't do instead of what I was going to do or what I was going to make happen. I tended to focus on all the negative parts of the situation instead of the positives and instead of what was right in front of me. Right? I utilized all these excuses to justify me playing small, to justify my weakness or what I deemed as weakness, because if I could validate me losing, it made me feel better. Perspective. Right? Rather than taking the perspective at the time of, man, I can't lose. There's no way I'm going to do this. I am not going to stop until this is done. I thought it was easier to justify my smallness by making an excuse. An excuse that seemed so real and seemed really good at the time because it made me feel better. And that's all excuses are. Right? My perspective sucked. That's the reality. My perspective sucked. See if I have water in this bottle. No, I do not. A little bit of water left, but nothing really in there. Right? And because my perspective sucked, I manifested all the results that I was supposed to get. All the limiting beliefs that I couldn't do stood out because that's what I put in my space. That's what I allowed to develop, was everything that I could not. And it's really hard to create on a foundation that's rocky. It's really hard for me to produce at a level when I have all the reasons why it can't work and won't work. I allowed myself to to have the perspective of losing, of being a loser because it felt easy. And truth be told is winning isn't easy, and it's going to take a certain level of uncomfort excuse me, to lose. I mean, see, coughing messed me up. It's going to take a certain level of uncomfort to win. As soon as you get a little bit uncomfortable, as soon as that happens, you get a little bit uncomfortable and you run away, you make excuses as to why it's not possible. Because I'm too young, because I grew up on the wrong side of the road, because this person didn't like me, I'm African American, whatever your excuse is, right? And I'm not saying adversity doesn't happen. I'm not saying situations don't arise. I'm not saying that you won't be faced with roadblocks. What I am saying is if you use that to justify what's not possible, then you'll get just that, what's not possible. So I started to really utilize time, or really spend the time to work on my mind and work on certain areas that will allow me to grow in areas that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. You know, Jim Rohn, one of the one of the things he said was, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Right? He understood the importance of working on self, because without working on self, you can only go and grow so far. That's it. You won't be able to get any further. He followed that up by saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. You know, one thing my parents used to always tell me growing up was, people can take everything, but they can't take your mind and what you have in there. So make sure you get educated, right? And I'm sure at the time when they were speaking to me, they were speaking about formal school, you know, going to get degrees, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I have a bachelor's degree. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to school, getting an education, doing what you need to do. But the truth be told, when they were saying that, as great as school is, if you're not constantly training your mind, questioning things that exist, and really understanding human beings and the way we move and the reason why we do what we do, then you're absolutely losing. There's a reason why people can go broke and make it all back. Countless times where you've seen people go bankrupt, make $1 million, lose it, and make it again. Right? There's a certain mindset that you have to have that allows you to see a certain level of success. But if you can't see, you can't achieve it. It's absolutely impossible. So I invite you today, like, your vantage point needs to look like success. That does, and I'm not telling you to have a number figure. I'm not saying, hey, you need to have a space where, you know, I can see $100 million or 10, like, whatever success looks like to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, so to speak. But what it should do, or what it should be, is something that's impactful, something that means something to you, something that allows you to grow. So I've created I've created a course that's around mental abundance, right? And I'm not here to sell it to you, but I want to invite you to look at this. One of the biggest things I've realized is that in order to create, in order to make, in order to do, there's a certain mental space that you have to be. Right? There's certain there's a certain mindset that you have. All the all the make money, and you can do all that, right? But at the end of the day, people need to have their minds rewired in a way that allows them to take action. When you're in a space where you feel like you're losing, you don't take the proper action because you feel like you're already lost. So you tend to say you tend to have overwhelm, right? Because you have all these problems that you didn't fix. You tend to have overwhelm and you don't do anything. So what this does is it takes a look at what's actually there. What is it that you actually want? What do you want to create, and how can you work every single day to get that done, no matter what? No excuses. What does that look like for you? So I created a course around that really focuses on certain domains, certain areas of your life, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, and really tackle these different areas, and really giving you a perspective shift on what is it that you want and how you can create what it is that you want. So I invite you to take a look at that. Right? It's dropping soon. So if you're seeing this, you can send me an email, Michael at the number 1% mindset.com. Right? So you can email me there. You can send me a DM if you're on my Facebook. I mean, if you're on my Facebook, or if you're on Instagram, you can send me a DM. But truly take a look at that, because I've noticed through studying, through working with people, that people are losing primarily because their perspective is whack. It truly is. And if you can alter your perspective and really rewire your brain for winning, and for being and having truth behind what you're saying, then things start to change. And I also have a couple of cool freebies um, with that. Like my book will be in PDF that you'll be able to get via email. So I mean, a few things um, will happen, in that, which is cool. So with that being said, definitely, if you have any questions about it, I have not released it to the public as of yet. But it will be released soon. But if you want first dibs on it at the price it's going to be at now, definitely take a look. With that being said, as usual, I appreciate you guys. Learn, own, and acknowledge truth always. Vantage point is everything. Vantage point is everything. Really look at perspective. And I've seen it firsthand with how I live my life, and also how others do it. I told you the story. I've also spoke about the story of the homeless man that I saw that was eating a breakfast sandwich and prayed for his food. Right? Perspective is everything. And when you can understand and look and see the good in perspective, then things start to change. So continue to rock out, support the brand. Go on the 1%mindset.com / shop if you want shirts, hoodies, mugs, whatever that looks like for you. And as usual, I'll see you next week. Peace.